On the one hand, elections in Vermont, California, and Washington, D.C. have opened up to non-citizen voters. San Francisco has allowed individuals in this country illegally to cast ballots in local school board elections. On the other hand, several states, Alabama, Colorado, Florida, and North Dakota, have added citizens-only voting language to their state constitutions in the past few years. And Minnesota enshrined this into their constitution about 50 years ago. Georgia should be next. Yes, Georgia law only allows U.S. citizens to vote in Georgia elections, but these trends make it clear that more needs to be done to uphold the integrity of Georgia's elections. This effort has overwhelming bipartisan support. A 2019 poll of likely voters showed that 75% believe that only U.S. citizens should vote in our elections. More than 70% supported a constitutional amendment limiting voting only to U.S. citizens. I'm joined together today by several individuals who understand the key importance of citizens-only voting in our elections, and they've made it their mission to ensure that only American citizens vote in our elections. Americans for Citizen Voting started several years ago and has worked in several states to advance, leading the way and pushing legislators to take action. The organization has created a petition to garner support from the voters of citizen-only voting. The petition is clear and simple. Only U.S. citizens should be voting in U.S. elections. After I've heard from Americans for Citizen Voting, I look forward to being the first person to sign the petition here in Georgia. I encourage all Georgians to sign this petition in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Georgia's next legislative session is only 4 months away. It is available at onlycitizens.vote. With us today, we have Chris Arps, the president of American Citizens, who began this discussion. Chris is a National Advisory Board member for the National Center for Public Policy Research's Project 21, managing partner with the Public Affairs and Communications consulting firm Redtail Strategies, LLC, and co-founder of MoveOnUp.org. Also joining us today is Hasha McQueen. She's the National Chairwoman of Americans for Citizen Voting. McQueen is an Army veteran, an immigration attorney, and second-generation immigrant. And finally, we have Ken Han, a local Georgia citizen who is committed to this effort and will join me at the end of the press conference in signing the petition. I'd like to pass the podium now to Hasha for a few words. Hasha.
Hello, everyone. My real name is Hasha FranklinMcKenzie, but that's way long. So everybody calls me Hasha. I'm from Missouri. My mother was from Lima, Peru, and my father from Illinois. And this is not a novel idea. I was an Air Force brat, so I moved around my whole life, and I've lived in a lot of different countries. This isn't new. Citizens-only voting, the majority of countries have citizen-only voting. There's very few countries that open that up to non-citizens, and there's a reason for that. I'm an immigration attorney, and I can tell you that the majority of my clients agree with citizen-only voting because they understand that they're not invested in the long term. Most of the time, they're not invested in the long term in the United States. And so why would they be able to affect policy in a place that they may or may not be staying? So this isn't anything discriminatory. This isn't anything out of this world. If you're a citizen of a country, then you should be able to vote in that country. If you're not, then you do not get to vote. It's just like the notion, if you want a country, then you have borders. And if you want integrity and faith in your elections, then you have citizen-only voting, because that's what it does. It allows integrity. It allows people to have faith in the system, that they are the ones that are voting for policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Americans for Citizen Voting and to Secretary Raffensperger for inviting me to this important event. My name is Ken Hand. I've been a proud resident of Georgia since I arrived in 2008. I'm married with 2 adult children, and we absolutely love the state of Georgia. I recently retired from a transportation company where I worked for 30 plus years. Actually, maybe lived was more appropriate. Prior to Georgia, I lived in Missouri, and prior to that, I lived in New York City, where I was born and raised. Since I turned 18 years old, I have voted in most local, state, and federal elections. I believe voting is an important civic duty, and I consider myself to be a reasonably informed citizen. So, as an informed citizen, I was stunned when I learned that certain localities in the United States allow non-U.S. citizens to vote in local elections. When Americans for Citizen Voting brought this issue to my attention, I responded like I think most people do when they hear this. First, they don't believe it. I didn't believe it at first. Then I thought, okay, well, maybe this is happening, but maybe in Los Angeles or Chicago or New York, but certainly it could never happen here in Georgia. Unfortunately, I was wrong on both counts. The surprising and alarming truth is that there are localities in the U.S. that allow non-U.S. citizens to vote. And to my fellow Georgians, there have been attempts here in Georgia to allow non-U.S. citizens to vote. This disappointing truth is the disappointing truth is that in more and more localities, there are people actively working to allow non-U.S. citizens to vote in U.S. elections. So as a Georgian and as a concerned citizen, I agree with Americans for Citizen Voting and with Secretary Raffensperger. We need to take common sense steps to ensure that only U.S. citizens can vote. We need to add a simple word to the Constitution, the word only. By adding this small word to the Constitution, it will clarify that only U.S. citizens can vote in Georgia elections. And this will stop the push by extreme groups who want to allow non-citizens to vote. This is a simple, but it's a very, very powerful solution that all Georgians can and should support. So in closing, I encourage my Georgia State Representative, Todd Jones, and my Georgia State Senator, Greg Dolezal, to support this reasonable approach to election integrity. I also encourage my friends and my fellow Georgians to contact your representative to let them know that you support only citizen voting and you expect them to support that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Hasha, Alicia, that's her nickname. Thank you, Secretary Raffensperger. I'm going to say a few remarks and then we will get to the signing of the petition. As I said, my name is Christopher Arps. I'm president of Americans for Citizen Voting. And as we've heard now, there's a troubling trend in the country that's happening from Maine to California to even in Clarkston, Georgia. And it is a movement to allow non-citizens to vote, non-citizens with green cards, to vote in our municipal elections, such as school boards and mayoralships. We applaud green card holders for coming to this country legally and doing everything proper that they should do, but they should not be awarded the right to vote until they become citizens. Voting is a privilege for U.S. citizens, and I can't go to Mexico, I can't go to Canada and vote in their elections. We should not allow that here. We've drafted a petition for voters to tell the legislature that they want to vote on this issue. We want the people to decide if they want to allow non-citizens to vote in our elections. Our polling shows widespread support for not allowing non-citizens to vote. 75% in our poll say only U.S. citizens should vote. 17% say yes, we should allow non-citizens to vote. It even breaks down by party. 89% of Republicans support not allowing non-citizens to vote. 62% of Democrats and 50% of independents or nonpartisans. It also breaks down from a demographic, from a racial standpoint. 75% of whites support this, 68% of African Americans, and 52% of Hispanics support allowing only citizens to vote in our elections. We were successful with this initiative in 2020 in Florida, Alabama, and in Colorado. Though the people there amended their constitution to say that only United States citizens should vote, and so we want that opportunity here in Georgia. And so the next part of our press conference, I'd like to have Mr. Secretary sign our petition.
Please bear with me, it's a long last name.
Thank you.
There you go.
And then we will have Georgia resident Kim Hand sign our petition. I got it.
Oh, another lefty.
Yeah. Wife's left-handed too.
It's a shorter name, that's for sure.
And we could never let you go without letting you ask a few questions. So if we have any questions from the press, as if anyone had any, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. There's been organizations I know pushing the idea of that in Clarkston, Georgia, and I'll get you the name of the organizations. But at the end of the day, what people need to understand is I had one of my workers come into my construction company. He says, I just want to thank you and my son Kyle. He said, because we helped him with his cost of going through the legal process of becoming an American citizen. He'll then go ahead and he'll register to vote. And that's the process we want, is people to go through that legal process and then please register to vote. It's never been easier to vote in Georgia. We give you 3 opportunities: absentee, early voting, day of elections. What we're saying is that the only people that should be voting in our elections, just like the only people that can sit on a jury, are American citizens. And that's why when I was in the General Assembly, I had a bill that said that only American citizens should sit on government boards, commissions, and authority, because I understand how important it is that precious right to vote. People have fought for it, and they have marched for it. It's a very important right. And when people go through that lawful process, if they weren't born here, they really do value American citizenship. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Hmm? I appreciate that question, but that's not really what we're here to discuss today. We're discussing non-citizens voting in our election. I think that what you saw was not exactly on our website. It was probably on our Facebook page, where we try to be a depository for all things non-citizens voting. And so we post articles on our website that you probably saw that, but that's not our article. We are trying to inform people about this issue. Pardon? Yes, I do trust the electoral system, but we still would like to have the people decide if they want to amend their state constitution to say that only citizens can vote. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, I do. I think I've talked about that extensively yesterday. When you have a county that's had election mismanagement dysfunction going all the way back to 1993, as far back as we could find, as reported in the AJC, people in Fulton County and all the other 158 counties want things to be improved. And I think that really needlessly put in someone from Fair Fight. She was receiving a paycheck as late as last Friday. She was on their website, for Fair Fight. So we really need to understand, and I think people need to understand, that Stacey Abrams is pulling the strings of who really runs the Fulton County Commission, and it's really sad. I know that politics and elections are a political process, but the running of elections is to make sure that we follow the process, follow the law, and don't needlessly politicize things with hyper-partisan from either the left or the right. And what they've done is they've taken a giant step backwards. And it's just really distressing to see that. The state election board is trying to move things forward in a positive, constructive manner. And by actions like this, I believe that they're really, needlessly, throwing up roadblocks for that improvement. I believe that the review panel that they've selected, which is one Democrat county election member, one Republican county election member, and our general counsel, will set aside, that blatant political partnership and do their job. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have fair and honest elections with the appropriate balance of accessibility with security. So we're not going to fall prey to those political games that Stacey Abrams and Fair Fight play. They're going to do their job with integrity. And so I wish them well. Very low, if at all. What I will give a shout out is Department of Driver Services does a very thorough check. When we went with the opt-out way of registering in Georgia, if you get a driver's license in Georgia, then Department of Driver Services ask, were you born in America? And they say yes, then then we know that they're an American citizen. They do a citizenship, very thorough. And sometimes they're taking some heat for that, but we want to make sure only American citizens are voting. And so because of that, we have good records here, good data, and we believe that good, strong voter rolls. But every once in a while, it does happen. People are confused because of this disinformation going out throughout America that some non-citizens can vote. No, go through the lawful process. When you become an American, then you can vote in elections.
Secretary, how is Captain Willard's role different from your previous role as the chair of the state election board, even though you are obviously a Republican?
Well, I think if you look at SB 202 with the change that they had with the state election board, we may not agree with all the things that the General Assembly put in there, but they were very specific that the new chair will not be anyone with any partisanship. So actually what Fulton County really, they could have done, stand back and just really thought about it and really exerted some wisdom, and they could have perhaps thought about maybe we should have a retired Superior Court judge, someone that even could lean on, towards the Democrat side, because I understand the commission makeup balances towards the Democrats. But they could have had someone that would have been much more balanced in that approach.
Mr. Secretary, is your support of this amendment a way for you to regain perhaps some lost support from President Trump and other supporters, obviously Kevin Hines?
I've been a Republican all my life. I've been a conservative. I'm a Ronald Reagan Republican. And if you look at my voting record in the State House of Representatives, it's one of the most conservative records that have ever been out there. But also, I believe that only American citizens vote. That's why when I was in the State House, I had that bill that I introduced. We moved it through the House, and it died over in the Senate side by a Stop the Steal senator. But that was to make sure that we only had American citizens that would be on government boards, commissions, authority. I've been always very specific about that. Thank you. Any other questions?
We are based in, I am from St. Louis, Missouri. Our organization is based in West Virginia, or in Virginia, yes, Virginia. Sorry. Let's see. We are working in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Iowa with legislators to get. That's a good question. We actually look at where there has been instances of possible non-citizens voting. We also, because we are a grassroots organization, people do contact us and tell us about examples, and we strategically pick states to choose.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.